The next amazing thing about dyslexia, problem solving. When I say what is one of the great things about dyslexia, it's about how you get to a solution. You know, someone without dyslexia might go from A to B, and that's fine. Now, dyslexia will go to A to B to C to D to E to F to G to etc. until you get to Y. Now, it's an incredibly long-winded way of doing things, but why are they doing it? Another great example is a London Tube map. So, you may have been on the tube, it's a complete utter mess, but if you're at, say, one end of the central line, I don't know, Bond Street, and you want to get to Liverpool Street, how would you get there? You would just take the central line all the way, easy. But someone with dyslexia might take a completely different route. They may, you know, go all up the Piccadilly, you know, they might go on the Hammersmith and City line, they might even go over the Emirates airline, you know, you know, you never know. Now, with someone without dyslexia, you might think, why are they doing this? It's not very productive, it's not saving time. But if you just take a moment and speak to someone, you might realise maybe the tube's really congested and you know this is a quicker way. Maybe it will give you more time to process. Maybe you've got some errands to do on the way. Maybe it's just more of a scenic route which will help you materialise kind of the thoughts in your head. Yes, sometimes life takes you a little bit longer to get places, but the end result is normally of a much higher quality. Problem solving. With dyslexia, sometimes you might always be forgetting things, it takes you so long to figure out an answer, and it absolutely drives you insane. I know it does for me. And this can be quite difficult to explain to the rest of the world. Why does your brain think the way it does? How are there any positives? And a simple tool I use to explain this is a Rubik's Cube. So, you know, you turn them around, you can get all the colours in order, but it takes a long time. If you, say you got two people, right? And I'm like, alright, Brian, I want you to write the days of the week in order, and Cliff, I want you to do the exact same thing. But the difference is, Cliff has dyslexia, Brian does not. Who's going to get there faster? You know, probably Brian. And that's not really fair. So just like the Rubik's Cube, every time someone asks you a question, it's kind of like you've got to solve your own algorithm, and you can only answer the question until you get to it. And I think by explaining it that way to people, they can kind of understand why you need a little bit longer. It's not also necessarily a negative though. The end result, you get a finished Rubik's Cube. Note, I can't actually do it. But also, that time of the process, you've had a much more thoughtful answer. We all know people who just talk for the sake of talking, and they never say anything that good. But if you're in a meeting and there's someone who rarely says a word, but when they do say something, you know it's of quality, you respect them a lot more. It's also like, you ask someone a question, and they go for a drawer, and they get the answer out, and they're like, there you go. Now imagine your drawer is like all the way up there. It's going to take a little bit longer to get the answer. But imagine if the answer up there is a better quality than the answer down there. It's a long-winded way of doing things, but I do find you will actually end up better for it. People often ask me, how do you turn the disability into an advantage? Now, I'm not saying this is an overnight period. It took me many years before I started being grateful for being different. The best analogy I've got for it is Spider-Man. So, you all know Spider-Man, you know, he's a crime-fighting badass, he dresses in a big spider leotard, shoots webs. But he wasn't always like that. So imagine when he was like Peter Parker, right? Just an average schoolboy going about his day-to-day life. Nothing exceptional about him. And then he gets bit by a spider, diagnosed with dyslexia. And it's a bit tricky because he doesn't really get this diagnosis. You know, he's walking around, he's tripping up, he's getting web all over his face, he's trying to hit bad guys, you know, he's trying to get Mary Jane, it's a disaster. He's not really winning at life. Now, easily he could have gave up here and be like, you know, I give up. But he didn't give up. He got up and he practiced. He learnt about his powers. He learnt about what dyslexia was to him. And, you know, it took time, but now he's shooting webs, he's wrapping up bad guys, he's kicking the Green Goblin. He is someone we look up to. What originally made him a bit of an outcast is now his unique selling point. It's the thing that makes him him, and I don't think people would have him any other way. Now, I know Spider-Man's a cartoon character, but I think that analogy really works for a lot of things in life with people with some differences. To be proud of being different, a lot of people need a role model. They need someone to look up to, someone that says, you know what, I want to be that person. And though a lot of people don't always speak about being different, about having a disability, about having a mental health issue, about coming from a minority background, there is representation out there. I really encourage you to find your own local role model. Maybe it's your parents, you know, maybe it's one of your friends, maybe it's an old teacher. But whatever you do, find someone and let them mentor you.